So that Hellboy movie came out, and a lot of people are saying that they like the original ones from 2004 a little better. So there. That's my tenuous reason for why I wanted to review this movie. That is 15 years old. Hellboy was released in 2004 and is directed by Guillermo del Toro. It stars Ron Perlman and tells the story of a demon on Earth who must work with a group of other paranormal misfits to stop an ancient evil from being unleashed onto the Earth. So this film came out in 2004, and for whatever reason, I just never got around to seeing it. I was aware of this movie when it came out, and I actually thought it looked pretty cool, but for some reason it just never really grabbed me as much as, say, something more familiar and mainstream like Spider-Man did. So I don't know, I just never saw it. So when Hellboy 2019 came out, so did all these articles that were bringing up things about the old movies, about how Ron Perlman and Guillermo del Toro had been vying for a third movie for years before this one got made, how fans should keep in mind that this is a reboot and not so much of a sequel. So I'm looking through all these articles and these reviews of the new movie that are bringing up the old ones, and I'm like, wait, this movie had a following? Wait, Guillermo del Toro? By the way, I was 12 in 2004, and I was not aware of any directors, let alone Guillermo del Toro, who I am a fan of now. So after being reminded about the original 2004 movie so much, I kept asking myself, what are these movies that I've been ignoring for years? And so, friends, I watched Hellboy 2004. And if you stuck with me this far, you're probably interested in hearing what I thought about it. Potential spoilers for this 15-year-old movie. Let's talk about story. Our story opens at the close of World War II. With an Allied victory on the horizon, the Nazis plan to open an interdimensional portal with the help of the mystic Rasputin. Unfortunately for them, a team of Allied forces interfere, and Rasputin is absorbed into the portal, but not before a single demon baby is expelled into our world. With the Nazis' plan foiled, young ally Trevor Brutenholm opts to raise the demon child as his own, dubbing him Hellboy. Fast forward 60-some-odd years, and Hellboy now serves in the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. Things are shaken up when the disciples of Rasputin resurrect him in the mountains of Moldova. Together they unleash a demon whose ability to multiply spells trouble for the Bureau and their team of paranormal misfits. But Rasputin and his crew have more tricks up their sleeve. They plan to unleash all manner of evil onto the world, using Hellboy himself as the key. Let me just say that simple synopsis I did right there took hella research. This is one of those films where the plot is simultaneously very simple and needlessly complicated. Really, when you get down to it, it's a bad guy destroying the world plot with a band of misfits that have to stop him. There. Simple, easy to swallow. But on top of that, you've got all this lore that has to be introduced, and a seedy underworld to be set up, along with sci-fi fantasy rules and regulations so you can understand the limitations our heroes are going to go through. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the lore in this movie. The world building is immaculate. I'm just saying that the whole time I was enjoying this movie, there was a point early on where I realized I just had to tuck logic and any questions into my back pocket. And I'm just going to say it, Rasputin needs to streamline his plan. Like, you want to unleash a cosmic evil onto the world. Great. It's a great leaping off point. Why then did you use valuable time sneaking into a pyrokinetics room to make her explode only to piece it immediately after? Was it just to get the character back into the Bureau where she needed to be for the story to continue? Probably. Did he need her? And if your plan was to unleash a cosmic world-ending demon onto the Earth, then why did you waste your valuable energy on this lesser demon that multiplies a lot? Like, why not just go for the big guns? And hey, maybe this movie just requires another watch for me. Honestly, there was probably logic to it, but like I said, there was so much going on that you just kind of have to forget some stuff. And unfortunately, that leaves logic just with some holes in it. But I also want to make very clear that I was hooked on this movie. Like, the second I started playing it, I didn't look away. I didn't go grab a snack. I was prepped, and I was actually watching the whole thing. Because as convoluted as the plot did get, I was having the time of my life. Really, when the story got good, it was more when it focused on the personal things with the characters rather than any of the big world-ending plot points. This really comes across in the climax of the film, where Rasputin is essentially trying to get Hellboy to embrace his destiny as this bringer of death and destruction, all that good stuff. It basically comes down to one side character going, "No, don't do that." And then Hellboy's like, "Okay." And Rasputin's plans just out the window. I'm telling you, he really didn't think things through. Again, maybe it did make more sense in the comic, but just taking it as its own contained thing as a movie, The plot points seemed a little overwhelming and at times a little shoddy. And let's be honest, it's pretty clear that the crowning jewel of this film is not its apocalyptic plot. Lots of the actual events that happen in the story seem to function more to place characters exactly where they need to be, to interact with each other, and also to produce a ton of creative bad guys to fight. Not amazing on the story front, but a hell of a fun ride if you're just looking for a fun time and not gonna get too hung up on details. Characters! Alright, so across the board, very enjoyable characters. It was really funny watching this movie for the first time in 2019 because it just reminded me of how cartoony blockbuster villains used to be at the time. Like, we didn't have Heath Ledger's Joker. We didn't have Cersei Lannister. We weren't concerned with relating to the villains or oddly admiring their motives. We wanted some pale-ass dude or vampy lady in a deep V-neck, possibly made of some shiny material. Sunglasses are a bonus, with shoddy motivations and zero subtlety. And let me tell you, this film boasts top-notch early 2000s villains. There's lots of mustache twirly goodness and they are just so bad they're good. But don't worry, because the characters are relatable and likable where it counts. All of the heroes have really good chemistry with each other and are actually pretty good examples of how to do some archetypes well. Liz Sherman, for example, is a character we've seen before. She's a character with remarkable abilities who is an outcast and just wants to be normal and to fit in. A lot of the times these fringe outcast characters come off as less insecure and more like that asshole in high school that was just too unique and edgy and cool for anybody. But to Selma Blair's credit, she actually does a really good job of playing somebody that's actually genuinely insecure and pretty much afraid of what she can do. She's like soft-spoken and quiet. She didn't get all leather-clad and cool. No, we waited for the sequel to do that. I watched them both. Abe, the psychic merman, is kind of like if C-3PO was aquatic and more capable of badassery. And what about that sentence does not sound enjoyable? As far as Ron Perlman's Hellboy goes, watching this, I couldn't help but think that this is maybe an oddly progressive character for the time. Like, even when I had never seen Hellboy and was just kind of vaguely aware of it, I still knew just by looking at the character what he was all about. Clearly badass, clearly a demon, clearly capable of brutalizing bad guys. But I was surprised that a lot of smaller character moments in this film kind of pose him as vulnerable and, dare I say, even a little dorky. Like, yeah, he's perpetually got a cigar hanging out of his mouth, and he's got these, like, gigantic fists and mad mutton chops, but he also, like, hangs up pictures of the girl he has a crush on his bathroom mirror, while he obsessively fixes his insecurities, surrounded by his millions and millions of cats whom he adores. I'm just saying that it was really cool to see this godlike, powerful, male demon character and just get the sense that all of this anger and standoffishness was from some deep-seated pain and insecurity. And the best part is that they don't shove this down your throat. Like, there's no giant monologue about how he's got so much self-doubt and how he's doing a whole bunch of this stuff to mask insecurity and la 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 la. The movie just kind of shows these moments for what they are, and then there they are, and then we move past them. Like, it's just something that doesn't really require any other explanation. This film also makes very clear that this isn't a reluctant hero, the kind that we've seen a lot of times in superhero and comic book movies. This is a character who actually wants to do this job and wants to be good, but he's kind of adopted this jaded attitude towards being a hero because he knows that his looks are going to place this expectation on him from other people of who he should be that he doesn't identify with. Again, really interesting watching this in 2019. And overall, it really does come across how much love went into writing and portraying these characters. Maybe that's why I was having a hard time following what was actually happening in the plot, like the major plot points being overshadowed by these smaller character moments that I found way more enjoyable. The only character I would say that approaches blandness is Agent Myers, but even then, he's kind of the newcomer character that comes in and he's the audience earpiece, the one that's asking like, oh, but what does your organization do? Please tell me more about it and tell me about this lore. Overall, the characters left me really curious about the source material. If you're all in for fun and a little early 2000s nostalgia, then you're probably going to enjoy these characters just as much as I did. Tone. I should refer you to my movie savers and deal breakers video. Nostalgia's a big deal for me. Like, I'm a big sucker for nostalgia, and this movie, everything about this movie's tone, it just was heavy nostalgia for me. In fact, from watching it, I kept having this thought, like, why did I not see this? What was I doing instead of watching this movie? I was 12 when this movie came out. And when I was 12, it was just magic, fantasy. I liked monsters, Harry Potter. Okay, but enough about my childhood. I just want to drive home the fact that this is a 100% time capsule movie. Early 2000s had a lot of magic, urban fantasy, seedy underground, weird green filter that was all matrixy on everything. Everything looked kind of wet and grungy, and this movie just falls right into that category. It's so creative in its badassery, in the design of weapons that they have, and the way everything looks like it's kind of a part of this weird industrial yet fantastical world. The makeup. Holy shit, the makeup. I always forget that I'm watching TV and films in an era where it's just, TV is top quality. Like some of the stuff you see in Game of Thrones, which has, of course, a massive budget. Still, it's just, I'm so used to seeing really top quality makeup all the time. So when I see an early 2000s movie that has something like the Cronin, it's disgusting. It's nasty. There's so much nastiness. I love it. Basically, everything gives a sense of magic and urban grunge and fun. This movie doesn't really take itself too seriously, and the tone is very, very consistent with that. Probably should have mentioned this in the character section, but on the topic of fun, there's some great one-liners in this movie too. And that's really what the tone is. It's that movie where there's a gun pointed, the spicy one-liner, and then boom. In fact, the only thing that I found kind of hilarious and out of place was just the music. As far as the musical score goes, it was kind of neither here nor there. But it's the pop songs that will come up at the weirdest moments. Like there'll be a shot of Hellboy just lifting weights, being awesome, crushing a few beers, and then it'll cut to a crane shot of the city and there'll be this really early 2000s pop song. What? Only happened a few times, but it was pretty funny. It's pretty clear that this movie was not concerned with being taken too seriously. It's a high adrenaline fantasy ride that you're gonna have a really great time with. Goofy, charming, witty, grungy, magical, badass, spicy. I think I loved this movie. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to find out where some more movies fall on the screen spectrum. So, I wasn't kidding. I thoroughly enjoyed these characters. So I actually picked up a edition of Hellboy that's, I guess all of them in one. It's kind of nice. Because usually when I want to get a graphic novel or start a series, what stops me is just the fact that there's just so many universes and so many iterations of these characters, and I'm just well, I don't even know where to start. What's the real one? Where do I start? And this is, I guess, just 4? I'm only here. But from what I can tell, it's already so different from the movie, but I'm excited. It's right up my alley. It's just, I like monsters. Not so much into superheroes in the classic sense of a superhero, like Captain America is a superhero. And I don't think he's really a superhero. I think I just love grumpy asshole superheroes that are grumpy.